What's happening, everybody? Well, with all of the hype around the new Demon C170, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about some potential dangers that you could find yourself dealing with if you choose to get one of these cars. This video will also serve as a bit of a cautionary statement if you are converting a car to E85 and if you're taking that car to the drag strip periodically, and I mean periodically, not regularly. So let's dive into this. First of all, the new Demon C170 is E85 flex fuel compatible, and what that means is that it has a sensor that will tell the computer how much E85 is in the car or how much gasoline or whatever mix in between is in the tank, and it will adjust timing tables and fueling tables to adjust for the needs of that particular fuel and what it can manage in terms of power output. Pretty cool when you're trying to make a bunch of power, especially with a supercharged application. However, that really is neat only when you're utilizing the car regularly. E85 is not a very good fuel to store long term, and prolonged use of E85 is a known killer of fuel system components. Fuel pumps, fuel injectors, and fuel lines in some cases can be prematurely deteriorated because E85 is significantly more corrosive to those parts than regular gasoline is. It's the ethanol that's in that fuel that makes up the bulk of the fuel that is so damaging to metal components. A quick example of this is for a lot of guys that make a conversion over to E85, you'll find that one or both of their fuel pumps, because typically you're going to have to run larger fuel pumps in that scenario, you'll find that those pumps will start to fail prematurely. And in many cases, you may not know that those pumps are failing until you potentially have a very significant fueling issue. Read into that, you've got a catastrophic engine failure due to poor fueling. This can also happen with fuel injectors as well. Word to the wise, top tip, if you are going to get one of these cars, or in the case of somebody making the conversion to E85, and you're not going to be driving the car very regularly, it's a good idea to run the E85 out of the tank, and because you have the convenience of a flex fuel sensor, fill the car up, or at least fill the car up partially with regular gasoline. Drive the car around on regular gasoline to help flush some of that high ethanol content fuel out of the system. It will help your fuel pump, fuel injectors, and other associated components last much, much longer. Also, in dealing with a car running on E85 long term, the cars that we're talking about here, especially like a Demon C170, could see long-term storage scenarios. And that is another area where leaving that ethanol in the tank for long periods of time can make that fuel absorb water, and you'll have excess water in that fuel tank. Really, any amount of water in your fuel could be considered excess, but ethanol is hydrophilic, meaning it will absolutely absorb any moisture, and in this case, probably based on humidity, that is in the air and around that tank. So please, if you're going to decide to go this route, make sure that you follow the protocol again to flush that system of as much of that E85 as you can. Put regular gasoline in that tank, let it run, drive the car around a little bit to help to mitigate these issues. These are problems that we've seen in the aftermarket with guys that will take their cars to the drag strip, they fill them up full of E85, they go run all their passes, and then the car sits for extended periods of time. Next thing you know, the car doesn't want to start, sputters, coughs, trying to get the thing just to fire up, much less run well at all on this old E85. Is a nightmare, especially when you consider that these fuels that are high ethanol content, E85, E90 in some cases, these fuels do sour. They turn bad relatively quickly. So again, follow that protocol with the fuel. When it comes to your engine oil, remember you're running a lot more E85 in your car and running it through than gasoline. It takes about 30% more E85 to create the same amount of energy that is in gasoline. What does that mean? Well, you've got a fuel that you're running through the system that can contaminate the engine oil in the crankcase much more quickly, by a little bit more than that 30%, because ethanol will wash past the rings more easily than gasoline. We're talking about the piston rings, and gets down into the sump. If you are driving this car hard, or you've got an E85 car that you're running hard, you will need to follow a much shorter time frame with your engine oil. I would never, under any circumstances, allow an E85 powered car to go more than about 2,500 miles between oil changes. I'd probably start to change that oil at around 2,000 miles if I'm running that car hard. After a real hard race weekend, let's say you're at an event or something like that, well, change the oil after the event. Basically, after about 30 passes at the drag strip, I'm changing oil even with gasoline-powered cars. It's just best practices. So E85 would have to follow suit just much more rigorously. Now, what about tires? Well, the C170, this Demon C170, comes with Mickey Thompson ET Street R drag radials. This is a drag race tire. And for any of you guys that may be thinking about running a tire like that on the street, obviously you know that they're going to be soft compounds. These are drag racing compounds that are going to wear out very quickly. But they have a nasty little secret that they'll keep from you. And that is that they are horrifically bad in wet weather. They're fantastic when it's dry. They're absolutely going to hook up in dry conditions. But in wet conditions, it's practically like having no tread on the back of the car. It's like driving around on bald tires, and the car will skate around all over the place. Guys, if you're planning on driving this car any real distance, pay close attention to the weather, or get yourself a street set of wheels and tires to drive this thing around on the street or on trips or whatever else you may be doing with the car. Don't drive those types of tires on the street for any real length of time. If you think that you're going to be going somewhere and it's going to be over the course of even a couple of days, don't take it on those types of tires. You'll burn them up extremely quickly. And if you get caught in the rain, it's going to be an extremely dangerous situation. So I wanted to bring this quick public service announcement out there to you guys. I know there's a lot of hype surrounding this car. E85 is nothing new. The protocols for working with cars and fuel systems with E85 fuels, E90 fuels, in other words, these very high 85 and 90% ethanol fuels, there's nothing new to this, but there might be some folks that are new to this type of car, mainly because the car is being released now. Guys are going to buy these things and try to treat them like a normal car, and they are absolutely not that whatsoever. And if you're thinking about making a transition to E85, these are some of the realities that you're going to have to remember that you're dealing with and adjust your maintenance schedule accordingly. So with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Y'all have a great one. Adios.